Etienne, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this third session already of Smart Standards Training webinar hosted by both Sen and Senelec. And I guess the purpose of today is to hopefully onboard you with us on Smart and to have you be part of Smart. So just before starting and to be sure that everything is going to move smoothly today, some housekeeping information in a way. So please note that you are all muted, which is normal. We are in webinar mode for this session. Nevertheless, you do have the opportunity to send questions. There is a Q&A panel in the bottom of your screen, hopefully. And in that Q&A panel, you can ask your question, and the team around the screen here will be happy to try to reply to all of your questions, and we will take time at the end of that session to come back to the main questions that have been asked and the different aspects on which it could be useful to take on. And finally, because I guess and I hope that Smart Standard will get you a lot of interest and you will be happy to share what you have seen today. Please note that this webinar is recorded and you will have access to this recording on the Sen and Senelec dedicated webpage on Smart. And with no further delay, I will also introduce the different speakers for today's. Those speakers are coming from both Sen and Senelec Management Center, as well as national committees or national standardization bodies members of Sen and Senelec. So today you will have the pleasure to have me, Etienne Caillot from AFNOR, as well as Julia Hahn from DIN, Sébastien Simon from CCMC production team, and last but not least, Mats Alins from SIS Sweden. In order to start this webinar and this training, we would like to get more information on who you are to potentially adapt slightly our speech and how we are going to deliver the information for you today. So first, we would like to have an information on what brings you here today. So basically, why did you connect? What is your role in a standardization context? And finally, the third information which is helpful for us at this stage is to understand if you are familiar with the standards authoring solution, which is OSD, which stands for Online Standard Development. I guess we will wait still few seconds, maybe 30 seconds, Alexandre. I cannot see how many people have replied already.
I can see only half of people have replied, so I'll give it another few seconds. Okay, I think that's enough, so I'll end the poll.
Thank you very much. So as we can see, I'm not sure that you can see the result, probably yes in your screen.
Yes.
So most of you are curious about Smart, so 81%. 30% are more than curious, but hopefully close to be part of Smart and consider to have its working group working on a work item with Smart. And finally, few of you, 6%, have been asked by your boss to attend this session, which is also good. What's your role? It's a kind of balance, mainly, I suppose, TC secretary and working group secretary. So I suppose mainly people from NSBs and SCs, but also working group chairs or convenor or other position in technical committees. So it means that we have a kind of broad audience today. And when it comes to your familiarity with OSD and your experience with the solution, most of you has already a relation with OSD. So it means that 41% attended an info session, and a bit more than 30% already use the tool for different purposes. And finally, around 30% as well is not really familiar with the tool so far. So I guess thank you very much already for this information, which are already very helpful for all of us. If we are moving slowly to the context of that presentation and the agenda, today we are going to introduce in which context SMART has been positioned into the CNNLX strategy 2030 on digital and especially in the field of digital transformation. We will then come to the OSD online standards development aspect, so the authoring tool, to give you an update where it stands and what is it help for those that are not familiar with the solution. And after that, we are going to deep dive on SMART, explaining what the SMART standards concept is, what are the process related to SMART, where we stand at CNNLX. After that, we will have the opportunity to look at demo, how the tool is working, and how you can use SMART functionalities, what will be your job within your working group or technical committee working on SMART. Finally, we will come back with you with the key points, question and answer. So please, again, feel free to ask every question that you may have, and we will try to reply properly. And finally, if we are hopefully sufficiently good, most of you would like to be part and be onboarding on SMART. So we are going to summarize and explain you the next steps. Trying to go quickly on the strategy. SMART standards is a part of the goal 2 of CNNLX strategy 2030. Our customers and stakeholders benefit from state-of-the-art digital solution. So there is different sub-purpose into that goal that are on the screen. So basically here we would like to make the standardization system and standards fit for the digital era and fit with your purpose into your own company and to be closer to your business process that you have internally. So this is definitely the purpose in which this project is embedded. And I guess we can focus on 2 key projects that are inside that global ambition or on which CNNLX rely to deliver that value in the future. So first, it's OSD for online standards development. This solution will help you to better write standards, to have it also more structured in order to deliver better solution, and also to facilitate the standardization process by having the opportunity to comment more smoothly the draft at the different stage. So you will have the link into the presentation where you can find every information on OSD and SMART on the CNNLX web pages. And for SMART standard, I will not go into so much details, but definitely because it will be explained further, but definitely the purpose is to make the standard even more actionable into your solution and even more deployed and used by the industry in a more suitable way compared to their current practices. So I guess it's time for me to give the floor to Julia, who is going to present you the OSD tool.
Yeah, thanks, Etienne. And good day, everybody, again. I'm Julia from the production team at dMedia, and I'm going to provide you further information on the Smart Standards project before we get to the details of the drafting process and the live demo of the Smart Authoring tool. So since most of you have at least heard about OSD or have already basic experience in it, I just wrap up some facts about online standards development. It's, as you just heard, one of the key projects supporting the digital transformation. And this authoring tool offers useful functionalities for fully digital and collaborative drafting process in technical committees. For example, OSD allows the experts to work seamlessly on the same document, what we can see on the next slide. And in addition, the drafting rules based on the internal regulations part 3 are already implemented in OSD, and the tool supports as well their correct application. And that reduces the effort for training or manual editing work for secretaries or project leaders. And a short comparison between the actual OSD and smart authoring tool we will give you later in this presentation. So now we are coming to information about the digital transformation and how it impacts the standards development process and the use of standards in the digital industries. So as you may already know, many standards users invest significant amounts of time and effort in the extraction of the relevant information and data from the standards. And they often do this via copy-paste of text snippets from PDF into standards and requirement management systems. So the Smart Standards project was put in place to transform the way standards are being developed. And it aims to put the expertise of the working group first. So failures due to misinterpretation or reverse engineering of information will be avoided in the future. And furthermore, the experts are in a position to mark up the relevant content in their standards. So in the course of the project, we go from what you see on the left, a human readable approach, to a more digital based process. And the output of the process is then machine readable content that you can transfer and apply seamlessly into management systems. And however, human readable versions as PDF or HTML, for example, will still be available in any case. And this way, our standardization community will be able to meet the needs of standards users in digital business and industries. And next, you will see some details on the categories of SMART. That stands for standards, machine, applicable, readable, and transferable. And the development, what you can see here in this utility model of SMART standards, goes from level 0, which stands for plain text on paper, to structured data based on XML, and in the future, eventually on data models like RDF. And right now we are working at SMART level 3, what means basically that the essential granular information units like provisions can be clearly identified and are available for further processing. And this can easily be achieved by marking up the provisions during development of the standards. That's what exactly happens in your working groups and what you will soon see in the live demo. So as you just heard before, this data generated out of this digital process and the provision markup will then allow standards users to integrate those provisions seamlessly in digital workflows. And last but not least, as I already said, misinterpretations due to post-processing of information will be avoided because the provision markup has already been done during the standards development process. And next, we have some details on the project scope. And here you may want to listen carefully because we'll come back to some of those facts in the next quiz. And for the time being, the SMART authoring tool provides provision markup as the basic SMART functionality. And the tool may be used on a voluntary basis for standards drafting at CEN/CENELEC and will include the process steps from drafting until inquiry. And the following deliverables are going to be supported in the tool. That's the European standards, technical specifications, CEN/CENELEC workshop agreements, and the harmonization documents. Some other documents are not going to be supported in the smart authoring tool yet. That's, for example, those under Vienna Agreement or Frankfurt Agreement. And the ongoing development this year is supposed to provide more functionalities, like the before mentioned simple relations or change record. And these functionalities could support standards makers not only in the drafting process, but also in review processes. The integration of the standards development process from inquiry until then publication into the tool is planned for Q4 this year. So now you heard about the basically available authoring tools, the OSD tool and the smart authoring tool. And now I just wrap up their current status. Concerning the standards drafting at Zensenlec, the smart authoring tool is optional at the moment, and it supports homegrown standards and covers the process from until inquiry. And you may want to know that the ongoing development at Zensenlec and ISO IEC aims to align the tools for standard authoring. And this means that since the tools build upon the same platform, so speaking of OSD and smart authoring tool, and make sure that the standards makers will be able to benefit from upcoming releases after short training period, because not that much will change in the front end of the tool. So now the timeline for the SMART project is, for the time being, we are about to onboard the first documents to be drafted in the SMART authoring tool on a voluntary basis. And if you may be interested as well, there's still capacity for up to 20 TC taking part overall. And how exactly the process for drafting is going to look like, you will now hear from my colleague Sebastian.
Thank you, Julia, and hi everyone. So here in the next few slides, we're going to cover the process, what changes, what slightly changes, what doesn't change. This first slide you can see here, this is the highest level of the process. You're pretty surely familiar already with this timeline of development phases. So from the work item setup activation to the end publication. Here we're going to focus, as already mentioned, to the process up to the inquiry, and because the development for the formal vote and then the publication will be handled and will be, let's say, completed for a temporary process by October. We will go into details of the different section in a moment, but what needs to be already highlighted are the changes. So first and foremost, makes sense, it's the online authoring tool, the smart one. So you might be already familiar with the OSD. Now we have smart authoring tool. It remains the same ID as already mentioned, a collaborative area where you can actually work together on a document, contribute with providing comments, and resolve those comments directly within the tool itself. The new functionality that we have for this smart authoring tool are the provision markup. So that it will allow you to mark different sentences and different intentions as being either requirement, recommendations, and so on. That will allow for a better interpretability, translation into the right intentions that can then therefore be very useful for the final users. So no more ambiguity, or at least least ambiguity possible within the final document. Sorry. Also, what will change is the provision of different new additional files, one of them being a smart PDF, which will include not only the text of the actual standard, but also the highlighting the provision markup, so that during the different ballots, ballot phases, the voters and commenters can actually see what is intended. Such provision has been marked as such, and in the future, other features, obviously. But here we will have this possibility to have that document available for commenting and highlighting those different provision markups that we will have. Second file that will be also provided is the Smart XML, which will as well include the text itself, but also the different new references and provision markup that will be belonging to different kind of tags within XML for the nerds out there. And this is mainly to foresee the future and to help the different stakeholders be getting ready actually for the future and what XMLs could look like and how they can be used. The slight changes now is that the translation remains the same, so there will be still the translation of the text itself, but we do not expect the smart version, so the tagging, the matching provision type and so on to be translated, at least at first. This is not the intention, as I mentioned. This is really more to foresee the future and see what the capabilities that can be that we could have with those new XML formats. The inquiry process in itself does not change. There will still be the possibility to comment, and whereas with the OSD there is the possibility now to have the actual inquiry ballot happening in the OSD itself, meaning that the commenting is happening in the tool and the resolution of the comments as well. Here we keep it as is, meaning that you will have to fill in the comments on the actual commenting template that we all know. And those changes, should there be any comments on the smart content, meaning the different provision markup for the time being, let's say you want to say, oh, this is marked as a recommendation, but I am pretty sure this is a requirement, then those comments will be marked in the commenting file as technical. If we go to the creation and the creation of projects and of documents, how to, here is the process that we expect you to follow. So first of all, for the TC, work can only start if a work item exists and is within a working group, so as a working group allocated. Once this part is covered, then we need to be informed by emailing us at smart@sensenelec.eu, mentioning that you would like to be part of SMART. Then we will have a bit of back and forth information between us, just to ensure that you do actually fall within the scope, that your document does, that what has been explained before, that all is well and ready to start. And for CCMC, so on our end, once we have all those information, we do register this information in our database. We create your working environment in the SMART tool, and we ensure that all the working group members have the access to the project and document. A slight note over here: the roles and permissions are provided, driven by the global directory in SEN and by the EMS in Senelec, meaning that if there is a role allocated to a team member on those two platforms, that means that there will be a role as well within the tools. The same works for OSD. If the person you would like to be involved does not exist on those on the GD global directory, and EMS expert management system, that means that no role will be allocated within the online authoring tools. The next step, you've all set up, you've been drafting in the tool, you're ready to submit your draft to us, to CCMC, to start the inquiry process. And to do so, you need to inform us at production@sensenelec.eu that you're ready, and we will take it from there. Because for the time being, all the integration with the CCMC tools are not entirely done. Only a few bits are done, and more will come in the future, obviously. But the submission through submission interface is not possible. So yes, once you're ready to submit your draft, you just contact us at production. We will ensure the handling of the project, such as the in-checks and quality checks, the editing, and then the submission to the inquiry, which is the next slide. And here we will, once we launch the inquiry, we will ensure that we have all the necessary files attached to the ballot, including the PDF and the XML version of the smart provision markup. And this is done on one hand for SEN, on the other hand for Senelec as well, so accessible on eTrans and on the FTP. Again, the translation of the smart content will not be circulated, but should we have the version, the French or German version, as we usually do, of the text itself, those will be indeed included in the ballot. For the members, there is a slight change as well. They can circulate the smart PDF to the national mirror committees. However, it was decided by the board to request not to circulate those information to the public. And yeah, and indeed, as mentioned before, the provision of the comments will then happen on the commenting form that we all know, and marking all the smart changes as technical comments, not general or editorial. And for the TC, it's just it is a note that for the moment the comments are not automatically imported in the smart tool, such as it would be the case in OSD, for instance. This is still to be developed and will be looked into for the future. But for the time being, this is a bit of the manual process and temporary one. And now let's see a bit of quiz. Let's see if we've managed to pass on the right information. And this is a new poll. Here we go. Can the smart authoring tool be used? Or you can select multiple choices. European standards, Vienna-Frankfurt Agreement, harmonized standards, technical specifications. And the second question would be asking if smart is the default authoring tool at SEN and Senelec.
Only half of people have answered, so a few more seconds. Okay, let's end the quiz there. There you go.
Oh, I only see the questions, Shannon. I don't see the answers.
And now?
Okay, here we are. Yes.
Okay.
So if you answered that only European standards and technical specifications were in scope in those choices, you were correct. Indeed, Vienna and Frankfurt Agreement are not in scope yet. Again, this is of course for future developments, and also harmonized standards are not in scope of this first bit. For harmonized standard, just a side note. Why not include it? Because there are many sub-developments and access rights that need to be analyzed first. Also, there is a full process going to the different to different consultants, different parties. There are rules that are in place that do not allow us to provide accesses just to a generic company. We need to know who has access to the documents. This is how the rules are set as well in OSD as well as in Smart, and meaning that we still need to find a way to incorporate either such approach, or at least to analyze deeply what are the impacts, and if whichever solution we want to have, that it does imply that we can provide the right accesses to the right person. according to the different kind of agreements that Sen and Senelec may have with external consultancy. And the right answer for is Smart, the default authoring tool at Sen and Senelec. This is optional. It's not a default. It's not mandatory. It's only optional on a voluntary basis, as long, of course, as your work items and work projects are falling within scope. And now that this poll has ended, we will go through the demo, and I leave the floor to Mats. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. And I'll see if I can share the tool. I hope you are seeing something now.
Yes.
So, working in OSD is a good start because then you have the feeling for how an XML editor looks like. That's why we have talked so much about OSD in this Smart session. But the Smart authoring tool is a different tool. So let's look at it and look at a little bit differences between OSD and Smart. So when you get your access from Sebastian, you would get a link and you would come in something looking like this. And each blue box you will get would then be one work item that you would have to work with. So if you have several blue boxes, you have asked for having several of your projects in Smart. You click on the box, you would see more about that work item, and you would have a document carried on that as well. In this case, we have made a fake standard about unicorns. Who doesn't like unicorns? And when we open that, you would see it is very similar to a Word document, even though it's on the web and it's online at all time. So you have your left-hand navigation, you have a middle section with the content. What we have extra here is that we have a panel to our right. If we look on top, it's just like Word. You have tools, you have menus with different tools that you can click on and get different results. And as we can see, you have possibility to insert table, graphics, figures, formulas, all of those kind of things that you might need in your document. But we will not highlight so much how you work with the tool itself, but look at the smart options in the tool. And what we want to do then is to navigate somewhere where we might have some provisions. And just for fun, we can look at our XML tab here. This is what we are actually after. So if I'm looking at a section of my document, we can see there is, of course, small tags in the document that has been put there by the system. So here we can see title and end of title, and then comes the paragraph, and we have some bold text and stuff like that. But if we look at something that's already been made into a provision, we would see that we have a lot more tags. We would have the information that this is actually a provision and the provision type and those kind of things. This is actually the smart functionality that we are aiming for, that we want to have in the document, in the background on the document, so we can do services for our end users of the standard. So let's have a look at the text. We can see here that three sentences has already been marked up as provisions. We can see a must statement here, which is an external constraint. We see a can, which is a possibility, and we see a may, which is a permission. So those have already been marked up in the document. How would I mark up anything more in the document? Well, I can just highlight a sentence. I'll go on insert, I go on provision, and I click on make this into a provision. then you can see this is defaulting into be a requirement, but it's a should statement. That's not a requirement. We need to change that requirement to be a recommendation. So just by clicking on that little pen, I get a box where I can select that this is a recommendation. I press save. This is now marked up as a recommendation. I've given the information in the document that this is something that we should keep track on. And with that, we have that little box around so we can see that something has been done. Of course, if I don't have any text, I don't have anything to mark up, I could have been standing in the document and go insert provision and provision, and then just start typing whatever it is that I want to have in my provision. And of course, I then could have selected which type of provision this is. For you with a keen eye, you have seen that under provision, there is two options, provision and inline provision. So what's the difference between a provision and inline provision? Well, in the text, there's no difference at all. A provision and an inline provision are equally worth. They are equally important for the document. But if we have two sentences like here that are placed together, and we've seen here that we have a provision box around, that will actually create some space between the text. If I want to have these two as then I want them to be unaltered in my final product, then I need to in some way indicate that this should not have a carriage return. This should not have a new line after this sentence. It should be connected to the second sentence even after when the provision markup, the box, is removed for the final standard product. In that case, I can make it to an inline provision. Then, of course, it makes sense that I make the other part also into an inline provision. Even now, if these look the same as the provisions, and they are equally same as important as everything else in that we have highlighted the provision, with the inline here, we indicate that these two sentences should not be divided with a new line when we do our final product, when we are presenting this for our end user, either in a service or in a PDF. So that's what it's all about when marking up our provisions. Of course, you have everything else you need in the tool. You have the possibility to insert all the proper things you do when you write the standard. And of course, under tools and download, we have the possibilities to bring this out to a PDF or save the XML. And we can see here that we have them either with provisions or then without provisions. This would then give us the possibility to pull out the information that we want to have for the inquiry, for the different parts in the process that we need, or if it's just to circulate with the working group or whatever we need to do, or if I need a PDF version that I can read on the bus home or something like that. So with that, I should stop the presentation here and go back to the slide, and we have a slide just summarizing or highlighting the differences between OSD and the Smart tool. So the OSD, it's developed by ISO and IEC, whilst the Smart tool is something we are doing here at Sense and Elec. This does not mean that we are working independent from what ISO and IEC are doing. We are very much together on this journey to make smart standards. OSD, the front end is a tool called Font-OXML, and that's the same you see in the smart authoring tool. We can use OSD up to the inquiry, and that is the same for Smart right now. But the difference is that in OSD, you would add your comments directly into the tool. With the Smart authoring tool right now, we have selected to use the commenting template. And what we had in that Smart authoring tool was the possibility to mark up our provision, which is then not possible in the OSD at the moment. And of course, we are already past January 2025, so we are onboarding our first smart TCs. No, you can't say that. Our first projects into the Smart authoring tools. And with that, I think that was my last part, and I will hand over back to Etienne, I think.
To Gonzalo.
Thank you, Matt. And I guess we will try to go through the different questions that we received, and I've seen that Gonzalo has replied to most of them. But
Yeah,
Gonzalo,
it was relatively simple this time, Etienne. So I think we got like two types of questions. One was about when harmonized standards can or should be integrated in Smart. So I tried to provide the feedback on that. So, but essentially, this is also something that Sebastian highlighted. At the moment, we still don't have a full analysis of the overall process for harmonized standards. There are different types of harmonized standards, different involvement of external participants like the AS consultants, the commission. So this is also one of the reasons. Of course, it's also important to start with a part or with a type of deliverable that is straightforward in terms of process. So of course, a non-harmonized standard also facilitates this step. So and I also wanted to highlight that for documents prepared under OSD, the current OSD process also does not integrate the full aspect of harmonized standards. So this is also something that is aligned with that element as well. Then there was a question about translations as well, and as we noticed in the presentation, so translations are not modified. The translation process is not modified. This is something that was discussed during the implementation of the Smart project. It was clearly identified as something that we didn't want to change now, but that we will take over later on. And of course, together with Dean, Dicky, AFNOR as the main translation part for the official versions, we will continue these discussions, and we did have already some previous discussions on how to integrate the overall translation process. So this is something that will come later on. And in a nutshell, I think those were the main questions. There is a latest one about the example of the Smartified PDF. But if I remember well, Alexander, this is something that we provided also at the last time after the training.
Yes, I can provide an example without any problem. Yeah.
And so again, I think from my side that was it. So I suggest you go on if there are no additional questions.
thank you very much, Gonzalo. It's I guess very clear addition to your replies. So in a nutshell, I hope that you are still there and you would like to be part of Smart. So just to sum up before concluding and explaining what are the current practical next steps to be onboarded. As you have understood, we are still at the beginning of a journey, in which we will have several steps, but still there are already a lot of benefits of being part of Smart. The first one is to help you to clarify the content and to potentially, at the end of the day, deliver better standard or better written standards that could be more actionable or usable for the end user. So it's already a good benefit that we can bring from those standard, from from the usage of that smart authoring tool. It could also help standards user to limit interpretation related to the content. Oh, is that really a requirement? Is that really a recommendation? It will be directly coming from the technical committee, so it will be clearer for the standard user. We can also enrich the content. This is the first enrichment to be able to identify and to type provisions and inline provision. Much more is going to come. So please take it really as a first step. And it will also evolve in the way that we are going to enrich the content of standards. Currently, it's done manually, but we can envisage more automatical process in the near future.